You're just here to wipe down the windshields. Don't touch the engine." That's what one of the senior techs told her right before the shop's most prized European sports car refused to start, threatening to destroy a multi-million-dollar contract. They laughed when Rachel, a 24-year-old female mechanic, showed up at the luxury car garage in Jacksonville. They mocked her hands, her voice, her notebook full of diagrams. They even called her the engine cleaner, not knowing she could outthink every man in the room. But when a 500K Ferrari SF90 sat dead in the middle of the garage and every so-called expert had failed, Rachel stepped forward with one quiet sentence. "I think I know what's wrong." No one believed her until she turned the key. What happened next didn't just restart a car, it rewired an entire male-dominated industry. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where are you watching from. And if you believe passion should always speak louder than prejudice, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's get started. Rachel stood at the entrance of a prestigious European car shop in Jacksonville, her worn-out sneakers brushing the sleek tiles that had seen countless Ferraris and McLarens. Just 24, she didn't look like someone who belonged in a luxury car garage. With a backpack slung over one shoulder and calloused hands from years of tinkering, she had the fire, the skill, but none of the trust. The owner, a stern man with decades in the industry, gave her a long, doubtful look. "We deal with 500K engines here, not student projects," he scoffed, assigning her to wash cars and organize tools. Inside the garage, male mechanics snickered. What's next? A nail salon in the back. One of them whispered loud enough for her to hear. To them, Rachel was just a joke, a female mechanic in a male-dominated industry, clearly out of place. But Rachel didn't flinch. Behind her quiet gaze was pain, grit, and a purpose deeper than anyone knew. She wasn't here just to fit in. She was here to fix engines and break every gender stereotype in the process. Lunch breaks were Rachel's only solitude, while the others shared jokes over greasy pizzas. She sat alone in the dim storage room, cross-legged on a crate, chewing her sandwich in silence. She didn't mind the solitude, it gave her a moment to breathe. And more importantly, to remember. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small, battered leather notebook, her father's old mechanic journal. It was filled with handwritten diagrams, torque specs, sketches of high-performance engines, and little notes in the margins. Trust the sound. The machine always speaks. Her fingers lingered on the pages. Each line carried the weight of memory of oil-stained hands, teaching her how to feel when a piston wasn't aligned, how to listen to misfires with her bare ears. Her dad wasn't just a small-town mechanic. He was an artist. Until one rainy evening, a car lift failed, and just like that, her mentor was gone. That day, the world became colder. No one took her seriously after that, especially not in elite spaces like this European car shop. She'd applied to 5 high-end garages across the state. All 5 had turned her down. Not a fit. Too delicate for this work. We already have an assistant. Dodges. It wasn't just rejection, it was dismissal. But Rachel didn't give up. She dove deeper. She enrolled in mechanical engineering, graduated top of her class, and spent every weekend rebuilding engines in her uncle's dusty barn. Not for applause, but for understanding, for control, for connection. At this new garage, she kept her father's journal hidden until now. That afternoon, she flipped to a sketch of a Ferrari SF90's electrical system her father had once admired in a magazine. He had scribbled notes on how the hybrid system communicated with its onboard diagnostics. Rachel began cross-checking those notes with the modern schematic posted on the breakroom wall. Her mind clicked into gear. She wasn't just sweeping floors anymore, she was studying. She stayed late every night, observing the way each mechanic tackled engine problems, where they hesitated, where they made assumptions. Rachel noticed things no one else did. A flicker in the diagnostic tool, a pattern in the electrical fault logs. She could hear the engine even when it wasn't running. Her father's words echoed, "Machines don't lie. People just don't listen long enough." They had all laughed when she asked to join the technical diagnostics team. But Rachel knew her moment was coming. Not for revenge, not even for validation, but because she saw something broken, and she knew how to fix it. What they didn't know was this: Rachel wasn't just here to learn. She was here to lead. The day the Ferrari SF90 Stradale rolled into the garage, even the most seasoned mechanics paused mid-task. It wasn't just any Ferrari, it was a limited edition 500K masterpiece, brought in by a high-profile collector with zero patience and sky-high expectations. The issue: the engine wouldn't start. No warning lights, no faults in the obvious places, just silence. For a machine that normally roared like a beast, the quiet was deafening. The shop scrambled. One by one, the lead techs dug into the car. Diagnostics ran clean. The hybrid system, the ECU, the battery management system all checked out. And yet, the high-performance engine remained lifeless. The shop owner's mood turned from anxious to furious. "If we can't fix this, we lose the entire European showroom contract," he barked, sweat pooling beneath his collar. Rachel stood at the edge of the bay, tools in hand, unnoticed as always. But she had been observing quietly. She'd seen how the lead tech bypassed a small secondary junction box connected to the high-voltage relay. She'd seen the subtle flicker in the hybrid control interface that no one else had caught. Her hands trembled, but she stepped forward. "I think the issue's in the signal relay tied to the electric throttle sensor," she said, holding up her notebook with the schematic her father once drew. They stared at her like she had grown two heads. "You think we didn't already check?" that one mechanic sneered. Another laughed. "Maybe she should try fixing it with nail polish." The owner hesitated, then waved her off. "We don't have time for guesses." But minutes later, after every known fix failed, he turned to her with a mix of desperation and scorn. "Fine, try your theory. Just don't make it worse." Rachel moved swiftly, focused, precise. She slid into the driver's side, ran a quick custom test through her own diagnostic script, then popped the access panel behind the dashboard. Her fingers danced around a forgotten connection point. She replaced a faulty microsensor, recalibrated the response curve, and tightened one last screw. She stepped back, wiped the sweat from her brow, and looked at the owner. "Try it now." The key turned. And for a moment, the garage held its breath. Then came the sound, the unmistakable, thunderous roar of the Ferrari's twin-turbocharged V8 engine springing to life, harmonizing with the electric motors. It was a mechanical symphony. Everyone froze. No one spoke. Then someone whispered, "Holy sh!" The customer, watching through the glass window, grinned. "That's more like it." Rachel didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her work had spoken louder than any words. In that instant, the female mechanic they had mocked had done what no one else could. Not with luck, not with guesswork, but with real skill, inherited wisdom, and fearless precision. And suddenly, the entire European car shop saw her not as a cleaner, but as the expert. Even after Rachel brought the 500K Ferrari SF90 roaring back to life, the garage wasn't quick to celebrate her. A few nods, a grunt of acknowledgement, but behind closed doors, the whispering began again. She just got lucky. That was a fluke. One-hit wonder. The skepticism wasn't gone. It had just gone silent. The shop owner, however, wasn't so dismissive. The Ferrari incident had saved their biggest account. He couldn't afford to brush her off anymore. "Rachel," he said the next morning, "you want a shot at diagnostics? You're on the next shift. Real work this time." It wasn't a promotion. It was a test. And Rachel accepted without hesitation. That day, a Bentley Continental GT rolled in with an erratic sensor failure. Two lead techs spent hours trying to resolve it. Rachel, observing quietly, stepped in and rerouted a signal through a secondary module, solving it in under 15 minutes. No theatrics, no drama, just precision. The next day, a McLaren 720S suffered from ECU misfires that stumped the team. Rachel isolated the cause to a corrupted software update, patched it, and optimized the engine's idle by hand. One by one, she chipped away at the doubt. But not everyone was ready to let go of the old ways. Jason, one of the senior techs with over 20 years in the shop, muttered under his breath, "Let's see if she can keep this up. One fix doesn't make you a mechanic." Yet, as the weeks passed, Rachel proved it wasn't luck. It was mechanical instinct, the kind you couldn't teach. The kind forged through years of silent learning and deep emotional connection with the machine. And then something unexpected happened. It was Matthew, an older mechanic known for never offering praise, who one day handed her a specialty tool and said, "You've got good ears. Real ones, like old school." That was it. No applause, no speech, but in the world of wrenches and grease-stained respect, it meant everything. The tides began to shift. Instead of ignoring her, the crew started asking for her input. Slowly, her name made its way onto the diagnostic rotation board, not as an assistant, but as a lead. One afternoon, the shop owner pulled her aside. "We're falling behind in electronic diagnostics. These new systems, you speak their language. I want you to lead a training session next month, for the whole crew." Rachel blinked. "Me? You're the only one who understands both the code and the combustion," he said simply. From a girl sweeping floors to being asked to teach the very men who once mocked her, Rachel's journey was turning into something bigger than herself. She wasn't just fixing engines anymore. She was dismantling the very gender stereotypes that had held her back for years and rebuilding something powerful in their place. The workshop buzzed with new energy. Since Rachel had stepped into her role as the team's electronic systems trainer, something had shifted not just in the garage, but in the people around her. Even the most stubborn mechanics who once ridiculed her now showed up 10 minutes early to her sessions, notebooks in hand. She stood in front of whiteboards scrawled with complex hybrid diagrams, breaking down data paths and electrical fault trees like a seasoned engineer. No one questioned her authority anymore. But what no one saw was the cost. Late at night, long after the shutters closed and the shop went quiet, Rachel often stayed behind, not to work, but to remember. She would walk past Bay 4, the corner stall where she had first fixed the Ferrari SF90, and sit alone by her father's old journal. That night, under the glow of a single flickering bulb, she pulled out a wooden plaque she had been carving for weeks. It was small, but the words were etched with care and reverence. "For Dad, who taught me how to listen to machines when no one listened to me." Tears welled up. The shop had become her second home, but it was her father's dream first. Together, they had once imagined opening their own place, where every fix was done with intuition, not just a scanner, where you didn't just hear the engine, you felt it. The next morning, before the team arrived, Rachel quietly fastened the plaque to the far wall of the shop right above the entrance to diagnostics. No one said anything at first, but one by one, the techs noticed, and they didn't laugh. They nodded. Later that week, a new intern arrived, a young woman named Hannah, barely 19, eyes full of wonder and uncertainty. The moment she saw Rachel, her expression shifted from nervous to inspired. "Wait. Are you the one who fixed the Ferrari?" she whispered. Rachel smiled softly. "Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is, you can fix it too." From that moment on, Rachel took her under her wing. She showed her the way around the shop, helped her understand torque curves, explained signal interference, and most importantly reminded her that being different wasn't a weakness. The old shop owner watched from the office window. He didn't say much, but in his journal that night, he scribbled one sentence. "She didn't just change the shop, she changed us." And so, the girl they once mocked, the female mechanic who dared to challenge a male-dominated industry, became the spark that ignited a quiet revolution, one wrench, one sensor, one young apprentice at a time. She never wanted to prove anyone wrong. She only wanted to do what she loved. But in doing so, she proved that love fueled by grief, grit, and raw talent can rebuild even the most broken engines and hearts. Rachel's hands no longer trembled when she held a wrench. She no longer second-guessed her thoughts before speaking in meetings. The garage, the one that had once barely acknowledged her existence, now looked to her for answers. It wasn't just respect she had earned, it was influence. Each day, Rachel fine-tuned not just engines, but people. She had become the bridge between the old-school mechanical mastery and the new wave of electronic diagnostics that defined the future of European performance cars. She could recalibrate a McLaren's ECU in the morning and then troubleshoot a misfiring Porsche hybrid battery system by lunch. But something even deeper had changed. Rachel had become a mentor. Hannah, the young intern, followed her around like a shadow. But she wasn't the only one. 2 more young women had applied for internship slots after hearing rumors about the girl who fixed the 500K Ferrari. The ripple effect had begun. Rachel made it her mission to create space for all of them. She started a side project, an internal training series called Listening to Machines, a tribute to her father's philosophy. Each week, she hosted voluntary after-hours sessions where even veteran mechanics showed up to learn her intuitive approach, how to use scanners and senses, code and instinct. Jason, the same mechanic who once doubted her, now offered to co-teach a module. "You've got something this place forgot," he admitted quietly. "You remind us what this job used to feel like." The shop itself began to transform. The mood was lighter. Collaboration replaced sarcasm. Teamwork replaced ego. One Friday, as the garage wrapped up a long day, the shop owner gathered the team. He held up Rachel's training schedule. Starting next quarter, this becomes mandatory curriculum, not just for interns, for everyone. The applause was real. Rachel smiled, humbled. She hadn't forced this shift. She'd earned it through consistency, compassion, and sheer mechanical brilliance. Later that evening, she stood at the back of the shop, watching Hannah troubleshoot a faulty signal on a Bentley's adaptive suspension system. The younger woman followed each step Rachel had taught her, careful, methodical, calm. The engine roared to life. Rachel didn't step in. She didn't need to. For the first time, she felt something beyond pride. She felt peace. Because growth wasn't about rising above others. It was about lifting others with you. She had arrived at this garage feeling like an outsider, a joke, but she had become something far greater, a quiet leader, a change maker, and a symbol of what's possible when you stay true to what you love. Rachel didn't just grow into the role. She rebuilt it from scratch. The sky over Jacksonville turned amber as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows across the European car shop. Inside, the once cold, rigid garage now pulsed with quiet warmth. It wasn't just the fluorescent lights, it was the shift in spirit, one that began the day Rachel turned the key on that silent 500K Ferrari SF90. Now, months later, the garage no longer whispered doubts. It echoed with learning, cooperation, and something far rarer, mutual respect. Rachel stood alone that evening in the back bay, polishing off the final diagnostic run of the day. Around her, the scent of grease mixed with a trace of lavender, the same scent her father's coveralls used to carry. She reached up and gently touched the small wooden plaque that hung above the diagnostic station. "For Dad, who taught me how to listen to machines when no one listened to me." Her eyes closed for a moment. She could almost hear his voice. But this wasn't just his legacy anymore. It was hers. She had once walked into this shop as the girl no one believed in. A female mechanic dismissed by seasoned men, tasked with scrubbing tires instead of tuning engines. They had laughed, doubted, even tried to ignore her brilliance. But she never asked for their permission, only the opportunity. And when that opportunity came, she seized it with everything she had. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to herself that the voice inside her was louder than all their mockery combined. Today, her story had become legend. The girl who fixed the Ferrari had trained half the shop's staff in high-performance diagnostics. Interns requested her by name. Clients praised her transparency and precision. Manufacturers began asking for her insight on electric performance trends. But Rachel didn't want recognition. She wanted impact. She wanted every young woman, every misfit, every overlooked genius to know that it's not about being accepted, it's about being undeniable. Before locking up, she passed by Hannah, now confidently guiding a new intern through a delicate sensor alignment. "Think she'll be okay?" Hannah asked, smiling. Rachel nodded. "She's got the fire, just like you did." As the garage lights dimmed one by one, Rachel stepped into the cool night air. The sound of distant engines echoed through the city. But in her heart, there was only silence and peace. Some revolutions don't start with noise. They begin in quiet moments, with a wrench in one hand and purpose in the other. Rachel didn't just survive a male-dominated industry. She reshaped it by being exactly who she was. And in doing so, she proved a timeless truth. You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes, all it takes is fixing what no one else can. Anyone can rebuild what's broken if they listen hard enough and believe deep enough. As the last garage light flickered out over Jacksonville's skyline, Rachel turned to a new page in her late father's journal, not to record another engine fix, but to sketch out a training plan for the next wave of mechanics who had been told you don't belong. This time, they'd hear something else entirely. Because she finally understood the dream she once kept hidden beneath grease-stained pages wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every girl handed a broom instead of a wrench, every quiet genius dismissed before they could speak, and everyone who had ever been underestimated in a world too blind to see their worth. The young woman once mocked in a luxury car garage had become the master technician rewriting its rules. And for Rachel and the many who will follow, the engine was never just a machine. It was a voice waiting to be heard, and now it's roaring. The end. Up next, 2 more stories of impossible triumph. Click to keep watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe passion can outpower prejudice.